Hello. It is day 4. I'm actually doing this in the middle of the day today. There's a lot on my mind, and I'm worried about some friends and family that are sick right now, and nobody knows with what. And it's just a really scary time. I keep saying that, but it really is. I found this thing on the internet. I'm going to share it with you guys. I actually saved it this time, unlike last time. And it says, whatever happens from here on out, do not wish for or imagine a return to the way things were. That's a trap. Demand that we emerge into a better world. Demand the end of every oppressive social condition, every structure that set the stage for this crisis. We start today. And that makes me feel a lot of hope. I think we're not thinking about this sometimes in some ways in the right way. And I think that I hope we start to. Austin announced today the closure and ban of gatherings of 10 or more people until May 1st. Um, I fear it's going to be a lot longer than that, but we'll take May 1st. My birthday's canceled. Uh, we have to make a better world when we get the chance to. I work with youth experiencing homelessness, and I keep thinking, where are they going to go? Austin, our homeless population here, I mean, there are in the older population so many older people on the streets that have diabetes, that are missing limbs because of it, and their level of vulnerability, it hurts, because that what can you do, and what can we do? We have empty hotel rooms and apartment buildings that no one can afford to live in. And we could be making better choices as a community to support the whole of our community. Because if this isn't teaching us anything, I hope that it teaches us how much we have to take care of our community. This comes from not doing that. This happens when people are allowed to not have access, to healthcare, to not have access to housing, to not have access to uh, being able to pay their fucking bills. Like, there's something really, really wrong in our society. And, I did Undoing Racism. I've done it twice now, and I highly recommend that training to anybody who gets the opportunity to do it. And one of the biggest takeaways for me was that none of our systems are broken. They're working exactly the way they're designed to work. And if you go back through history and if you go back and pay attention, I think you can't deny it. Even the history written by the winners, the subtext there tells you everything you need to know. We have an obligation moving forward, those of us who get to make it through this, to do better and to be better. That's Vinny. You can say hi to her if you want. She's going to probably claw on my flag, because that's like her favorite thing to do, and then she gets stuck in it, and it's quite adorable, and you may get to see it. I'll move so you can. Let's give you a little better view of Vinny. I know nobody comes here to be like, I can't even think of words anymore, preached at, right? But there she is, high up. Oh, look, there's my posters. uh so my evil eye. um there's a lot to learn from the experience of nothing and of having nothing. I figure if you're gonna listen to me, you may as well get to look at that cute ass little kitten up there. Uh, I grew up pretty solidly. I actually grew up poor, and didn't know, because I had generational access to generational wealth, and my mom worked her ass off to make sure that I never knew how little we really did have. And but I grew up like lower middle class, And I come from a family that's pretty solidly middle class America, right? The dream. And um, and then I was homeless. And it was when I had nothing that I learned what community means. And in the same way the virus is spreading through our community, kindness does too. And I know that sounds so cliche, but it's real. We have chances and opportunities now to help each other and to lift our whole up, right? The whole reason the bootstraps thing is bullshit is because some of us don't even have boots. And it's meritocracy. And there are some things in the world that are just everyone should be able to do and have access to and have a right to. And when this all started, I was having really bad panic attacks. And I guess I'm still having really bad anxiety, and like my heart gets tight, you know. But I was at work, and I work with kids experiencing homelessness at a place where I used to be a kid getting services. And it keeps, I keep thinking about this story. So I'm going to share it with all of you. Um, I was homeless, and I hung out on the drag a lot, and I hung out on the church steps, and through that space met a bunch of people who were kind of around my age doing um, like what do you call it? Ministry, street ministry to young people experiencing homelessness. And so I befriended them. And frankly, in some ways, I used them. And I needed a place to stay, and I needed food, and I needed care. And they would give it to me. In exchange, I just had to go to church, which I grew up in the church. So going to church wasn't that big of a deal for me, you know? And they invited me to like a retreat for college age kids. And I went, and I was moved by the music, because music just gets me, because I love music. And I grew up in the church, and I grew up as a singer. And I was baptized that weekend in a horse trough. I was in my 20s. We all make our choices. And I came back to Austin, and at that time was living in a flop house off of Old Torf and Parker. And I woke up the next day, and I was so sick. I was I mean, frankly, vomiting and expelling bile from all of my orifices. And I walked from, uh, I walked up Parker to Old Torf and got on the bus and was taking it to the drag. And that's about maybe it's a two bus, at that time it was two buses, and probably about 35 minutes from beginning to end. And it took me almost like, I think 3 hours to get to the drag, because I kept having to go off the bus every like 15 minutes and go to the bathroom at like McDonald's, and and vomit and be sick. And I finally made it to the drag. And at the time, the University of Texas, the student union was open, and there were parts of it that were open only to students. But if you looked like one, they didn't bother you. And I used to hang out up there, because in the summers I could get some air conditioning and pull two chairs together and take a nap with a book, and I looked like a college kid, so everybody's fine with it. And so I was in the union, and I got sick. And they also, I'm about to age myself. They had a bank of phones you could use for free, which I used all the time to like check in with my family and stuff. And um, I called my friend Jen, who was one of the kids from that church group, and said, "I'm really sick and I need to go to the hospital, and can you help me?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'll be, I'll be there to get you in half an hour or something, in front of the Barnes and Noble, or I think it might have already been a co-op on the drag." And I got off the phone, and I got sick, and I was running to the like family bathroom that was a single unit bathroom, and I threw up bile all over the place. And a UT security guard found me, and before anything asked to see my student ID, and I didn't have one. And then so kicked me out while I'm like deathly ill, and I'm so dehydrated at this point. I can't get anything out of my body, like except just the stuff expelling. And um, so I got to the drag, and I'm sitting on the wall in front of the Barnes and Noble, my knees to my chest, curled up, just puking every few minutes, waiting for my friend to come get me. And I can't cry because I don't have any tears, but I'm crying, but there's nothing coming out. So I'm not dehydrated. And I make it to Brackenridge. And Brackenridge at the time was the charity hospital for Austin. So if you were homeless, you could get services there with no money. And I was a frequent flyer because I was sick a lot. I got a staph infection at Barton Springs. Just, I needed health care and I didn't have access to it. And so I get into Brackenridge, and anytime you go to Brackenridge, it's going to be a 4 to 6 hour wait before they see you, and everybody knows it. And I tell them my symptoms, they do my triage, and as I'm walking back into the waiting room, I throw up bile everywhere. And so within 15 minutes of getting to Brackenridge, I'm in a room, and they need samples that they can't get out of me because I'm so dehydrated and I can't stop vomiting. So they put me in, put an IV, and it's something to stop the vomiting, and it's something to stop and then I think there was probably morphine, some kind of painkiller in it. And I was there for an hour and a half, and they could never get a sample out because I was just that dehydrated. And the people come that do your insurance stuff, and I don't have any, and so you're basically at that point just like, you should be grateful that we're giving you this because you aren't going to get anything else, and sent me on my way. And I was still sick, and no one told me what was wrong with me. No one diagnosed me. um, I kind of glossed over sitting in front of on the drag and what it was like to have people walk by and look at you like you don't deserve to be there. Like, how dare you be ruining my aesthetic? Like, you're disgusting. Like, you're not even a person. I wasn't a person that day to anyone but Jen. Um, I didn't exist. I didn't have a right to. I know what that is. I've seen it. I saw it so often when that was my life. And I just was sick. And so the hospital let me go, and Jen let me stay at her house for like a week, and then I got her sick. And then about 6 months later, I was at the drop-in center on the drag, and on Thursdays at the drop-in, they did a clinic and it had a registered nurse practitioner who would come out and, give you like antibiotics and birth control, and would do a yearly for you. And so they would do a blood draw. And so about 6 months later, I got my report back from my yearly, and Maggie, who was the nurse practitioner at the time, said, "Ree, have you have antibodies in your blood that show that you fought off hepatitis B? Have you had a hepatitis B diagnosis?" And I was like, "No, no, not at all. I haven't been to the doctor. You're the only doctor I see." And then she asked me if I'd been really sick in the last few months, and then I told her. So I want to be clear that hepatitis B is an infectious disease, and I had it and went to the hospital and begged for help from anybody, and was never even allowed a diagnosis. So when you think about something like COVID-19, um, and I think about my young people, and I think about my friends that were older, that were like, we called them home bums, um, and what they're going to do and what's going to happen, and how we can do all the social isolating in the world that we want, and how much privilege exists in the ability to sit here and talk to this machine and put it on the internet and have my water next to me and my cat, and there are thousands of people in our city that don't have anywhere to go. And what's more, that aren't seen as human. What makes me now deserving of being called a human that I didn't have when I was 22? What makes me now deserving of not being afraid of where my next meal is going to come from, or the roof over my head, that I didn't have at that age? And it's not, people can say whatever they want. You work so hard, you've done such amazing things, and people say this shit to me constantly. And what they don't understand is, none of what I have today would have come to me had it not been for the community of people around me that were lifting me up. And it was a huge community, and it was broad, and it was people choosing to care about me. Why? I don't know. Did I deserve it? I don't know. I mean, yes, obviously we deserve care. Um, but I'm not unique, and I'm not a snowflake. There are thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in our country right now, and really around the world. But I can't. I unfortunately came up Eurocentric and US centric because that's how I was raised. And honestly, at the moment, can't stomach thinking about more than my own community. And this shows us that we're a global community. And we have an obligation to care, and we have an obligation to do better. That's all. This city cares so much about the well being of animals that we have a $14 million indoor dog park in the works. But I'm telling you that it's our obligation. We're better when we serve others, right? That thing that's going around right now. It's our obligation to care for our world. It's our obligation to care for our community. And more than it being an obligation, it's an honor. It's an honor. And that's how y'all have to look at it. That's how all of us who have the comfort of these homes and these machines and these cats, that it's not an obligation, it's an honor. It's a privilege that you can care for another human being. So I guess on day 4, my reflection is about, please just care. Please think and look to and find the opportunities within your community to be a helper. Because right now, the only way any of us are going to make it is if all of us do. So that's my preachy check-in for day 4. There might be another one later tonight when I'm in my depressed mode, but I just want you to hear me. If none of these ever get seen, I hope this one does. Thanks, guys. I appreciate those of you who are checking this out. Have a great day. What March is it? March 19th, 2020, day 4. Bye.